first, and then he sanctifies us. So go to Christ, get baptized, and then let him work in you and see what happens, is what I would say.
I see. Because they said it's like wrong or something, and it all they also said it's disrespectful and blasphemous kind of.
It sounds
That's
like you're
why I
just
got
talking to lay
like.
Christians and not people that are.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that, right?
Yeah. Anyway, man,
we're gonna
thanks for coming. We got to move on. Right. We appreciate talking with you.
Thanks.
Go get baptized. Next time you come, I hope to hear that happen. It was nice talking with you again, man.
Thank you.
All right, let me.
My lats are tight, Mike. Ugh.
Good. Man, I don't know. See a doctor.
No, sorry. I'm just complaining.
I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way. Person 1 glances at you with bombastic side eye. Person 2 pinches the top of his nose by the forehead while blowing his head and says, "Get your head out of the gutter." I feel like I'm missing a reference here. I don't know either. I appreciate the super chat though. Rewatch the Jim Majors debate. You destroyed him. Yeah, that was embarrassing, man. I don't. Also, Than, how much for a lecture on bays?
You didn't read the last part.
I'm not reading the last part.
Wait. I'm not going to charge you for that. If people in the Discord server want something on Bayesian epistemology, we can get something scheduled. Happy to do that.
If you want him to like come speak, yeah, it would cost like you pay for his travel.
Oh yeah, I mean like if it's for like a speaking event or something like that, sure.
Yeah.
But I'm just assuming you meant like content or something. Like
there's a form on our website you can go through and get all that stuff put in. So go to the website, inspiringphilosophy.com. You can fill out a form for something like that. So check that out. Joe Schmidt claims that claims are evidence, but that's just putting dogma over data. You see? This is the proof. Joe Schmidt is a secret Christian. I don't have any formal training in philosophy, so I'm unsure if I'm making an obvious mistake. Model of Trinity, author, self-inserted character in writing style. Is this metaphor? In this metaphor, we are the characters. No, don't do that, man. No. The Holy Spirit is not a writing style. No.
Wait, is that what's happening here?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Father's the author, self-inserted character is Jesus. The Holy Spirit is the writing. Yeah, this is Arianism, modalism, something, man. It's not the Trinity, though. I'll tell you that. David, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm fine.
Good. Yep. So what's the objection you have to the resurrection?
Okay. So yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. I just have a couple of points I want to talk about. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is to challenge the claims about the women. I think there's a lot that we say about that I don't think is correct. So the first thing is that the claim is generally like, okay, so we have from Josephus the claim that in the law of court or in the court laws, in the courts, women are not, their testimony are not accepted and things like that. All right, but the problem is that the narrative, the resurrection narratives are not legal proceedings. They are not court cases, right? So I don't think that applies. I don't think you can use something that is basically taking Josephus out of context and using it in a different context. So I don't think that really works.
However, I do acknowledge. Hold on. We didn't just say in court cases the testimony of women was not to be accepted. We pointed out the cultural precedent that women were assumed lower. They were assumed to be dumber than men and that kind of stuff. So people just didn't accept them on a lot of things. So using them as your initial witnesses is very unlikely in that culture is our point. And again, so we pointed out this was used against the Christians as it was by Celsus, for example.
Yeah, but Celsus only claimed that the women were not reliable. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I understand from Celsus' point of view I guess maybe like a kind of misogynic way of putting it, but I don't think he's saying it because he's saying that, okay, like I don't think we can say because women have this kind of maybe certain disposition, like the way Asian people might say, that automatically means that they couldn't have made up the story, right? I don't think that really works that way, because even like, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Africa. We have cultures. Not everybody, like some people have very old culture that have this kind of very similar ideas. But that does not mean that in certain situation women are not reliable witnesses of certain things. So let's say, for instance, a woman goes to the farm, she experiences something, she
your
runs.
culture. That's
I'm
not
just let
citing
me finish my
Jewish
point.
culture.
Let me finish my point. Just hold on, I'm getting somewhere. Let's say she comes back, she runs, she experiences, and she tells the community. They will believe her, even though on a normal day, in other situations, they wouldn't. My point is that in the narrative story, there's no reason why they wouldn't have believed women. Like, it's even the culture. Why? Because they are part of a closed system, a closed community, right? And remember, the women are not witnesses to the outside world. They are witnesses to a close community of men. And in fact, in the first gospel, women are not even witness to anybody at all. But in the other ones, yes, they do witness to the men. But remember that they are in a close community. They're not in the outside world. They're not witnessing to the Sanhedrin. They're not witnessing to the general populace. It's a close community of Jews that have been following him for a long time. I'm assuming the women are coming from Galilee. I think there's one gospel that assumes that they're coming from Galilee.
It's very hard to
So
follow
these
and
women are
understand
well
you.
known to the men. Oh, okay. Let me repeat what I mean. So
yeah, just
okay, let me
try to summarize because just try to summarize.
Okay, let me summarize. Yeah, the point is that there's no reason why the story couldn't have had women there, because the women are well known to the men. They're in a close community. They are not the kind of, I don't see any reason why it's a special thing. Number two, let's not forget that we don't actually know where the gospel authors were written from. Like, I know that, yes, there is a debate on the authorship and all of that, but it's very possible that a lot of these authors are writing for somewhere outside of Judea where they don't have that kind of limitations. Yeah.
So I was just going to tackle the outside of Judea thing really quickly. There's a thing called onomastic congruence, and the basic idea is we actually have the name frequencies in the Gospels and Acts. And I have a paper in peer review on this topic, by the way. And we've actually been able to take the name distribution of names in Palestine, the Greco-Roman period, all that other stuff, right? And we have been able to geographically situate them and chronologically situate them. So we know what the name distributions were like at the time of and places of the historical Jesus. And we know what they were like in times and places that are not where the historical Jesus was. When we take the data in the Gospels and Acts and take the name frequencies in there is a direct match with the places and times that the Gospels and Acts report to be stories of, right? In other words, there's a match with where you would expect to see if the Gospels are reliable with the names, and there's a mismatch with where you would expect to see them if, like, you're right. So, for instance, the Gospel of Thomas has a different name distribution than what you would expect to see in ancient Palestine, for instance, where Jesus walked and all that stuff. So, sure, is it possible? Sure, but the problem is it's not going to explain the data.
No, I don't think so. I think the women challenge is a bit overplayed. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a bit overplayed. We don't really know the kind of things that will embarrass someone. I don't think we can say that in a convincing way that will embarrass a group. People have different ideas of what the role women play in a community. So I don't think we can really make that case. I'll say one more thing.
I'm going to be blunt here, David, with what I think is happening here. I just think you're pointing to possibility right now, and that's it.
No, I'm not. So what I'm challenging, hold on, let me say what I'm challenging.
David, we've let you go on long-winded rants for a while, right? All you've done is say, well, this data point and this data point and this data point and this data point is underdeterminate. It doesn't force the conclusion that the women's testimony would have been embarrassing or something like that, right? Now, I can grant that because that's not really what we're trying to say. We're just saying, hey, when we look and survey the context of the time, it seems like the view of women's testimony in general was rather low. and we don't have any evidence against that idea.
Okay. Okay, fair
The
enough.
best explanation of the data is that women's testimony was seen as in a low way in both court and non-court scenarios. Do we have any reason to think that was not the case?
Okay. I mean, I get the general idea, but I just feel that it's not a strong case because we really don't know what will embarrass a group in a particular time. Except I don't think we can use those few data points to make the case. However, I do agree that it's something to acknowledge, but I don't know. But another thing I'll mention is the 1 Corinthians 15 thing. You mentioned that, I think you quoted into right, and I've heard him say this where, because the women are absent in 1 Corinthians 15 in the list, so therefore, let's just assume that they wrote the women out of the story because they were embarrassed. But that's actually an argument from silence, because it's just as likely to be the other way. That is that when they're writing the creed, hold on, let me finish. When they're writing the creed,
we don't
they have
know
no idea about any women.
David, what I'm trying to say is the audience is having a hard time hearing you. We're having a hard time hearing you. So,
okay.
Yeah, we were interrupting you because we don't know what you're even saying.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll try to, I don't know, is it breaking off or is not loud enough?
You have a little bit of a room echo and your accent is kind of strong. So it's hard to actually get a lot of points across.
Okay. Let me just give me 1 minute.
Listen, why don't you come back some other time? I apologize. Sometimes this happens. It's a lot easier to talk in person. Right now, it just isn't. And people have been complaining.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just one of those
not even
really
a volume thing. It was the mic was like overexposed, so it caused a lot of distortion and stuff like that too.
Yep. It's unfortunate. And there's nothing wrong with him. People have accents. It's just sometimes it's hard to hear just because of the way human speech is, unfortunately.
I'm also very stupid, so.
Yes, we know. Muslims have told us 1,000 times.
I'm stupid and gay.
Yes. All right, let me get that set. Okay.
It hurts.
I don't care. Super chats. Does salvation require specific philosophies like moral realism or pro-life too, or is believing in a triune God and Jesus the sole requirement? Believing in God. There's nothing in the Bible that says you have to be moral realist. We argue those beliefs would flow out of Christianity, but that's not required for regeneration and salvation. There's a difference here. It's it's the cause and the effect.
I was under the impression that you have to be a full-fledged Bayesian. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, and a full-fledged Republican, obviously. The parable of the vineyard applies to the Jews. No, is this in regard to my previous question about the God's chosen? It's Michael Patrick Barber points out it's to the Jewish leaders. He points this out in his book Jesus and the Temple. It's about the Jewish leaders, that they're going to have the kingdom taken away from them and given to the disciples who are Jews. Will you ever respond to the video on modern atheism Richard Carrier did on the gospel reliability series? If we just want to facepalm the whole time. I mean, their whole attempt to debunk automastic congruence was to cite the paper that we cited. That was so we cited Luke Vanderway and Jason Wilson's paper, and in response, Carrier cites the Blaze and Greger paper. But the paper we cited was a direct response to that paper, showing a lot of methodological problems. But that's all they did. It's like, do we really need to, if they're going to cite something that they don't even understand the argument and the research done on it? That was bad. Via super chat, in the Sheffield debate, I got Ehrman to admit James believed Jesus was the Son of God and the apostles believed they saw the risen Jesus. This is based. Awesome. It's pretty good to hear. Honest question. If Jesus is God, then how come the Gospels portray him as being given the authority to do things? Because it's based on how we understand the Trinity. Jesus is ontologically God, but he is essence. He still is begotten of the Father. So everything he has been given to him from the Father. So it's not that he is the Father. He is the Son. And what the Son has comes from the Father. So that would include authority. that kind of stuff. Thank you for the $1. We appreciate it. All right, you ready to bring in the next guest?
Yeah.
What up, man?
Oh, yo. We can't hear you, bro. Check your mic settings.
This is ridiculous. I'm so annoyed.
We still can't hear you.
No, we got nothing. I was really looking forward to this.
There's on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the mic, and then there's like a little up button. Click on that, and then see what your options are there.
Yeah, you click the gear at the bottom. Okay.
Check.
I'm gonna do super chats while you figure this out.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna do. I get what he's trying to say, but the way he's putting it through our culture view we have of women, most of our documents hint to women being undervalued in aspects compared to modern day. Yeah, that's the point we're trying to make. It's like it's a cultural thing. It's that we have so much
testing.
There we go.
Oh,
I was just about to text you.
There we go.
Nice.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now we
that.
can hear you.
Hey guys. Well, I only have like 10, maybe 15 minutes before I have to go pick up my kids, but glad I caught you guys.
Sorry.
I heard...
You should have put something in the live chat or the private chat. I would have brought you up earlier.
No worries. I heard your guys' stream that you did with Nick Meter earlier in response to Apologia.
It's
I think I got it right. I think I got it right. And yeah, I mean, I agree with Paul on some things. I disagree with him on other things, but you know, I thought your guys' stream was really interesting. One point that you made that I wanted to just give a response to and hear some feedback on is the point about like Paul not offering a kind of there's a missing step in his argument that he's not really explaining, and going from like the possibility of hallucinations to interpreting those hallucinations as resurrection. And why would the disciples do that? Why would they interpret those experiences, subjective experiences, in terms of resurrection without you know, how does Paul actually explain that? I have no idea how Paul would explain that. The way that I have usually seen that ever since reading Schweitzer, because Schweitzer actually says this, and I think Dale Allison follows this to some extent as well, but in Quest of the Historical Jesus, Schweitzer says the psychologists will say that the resurrection experiences, however they may be conceived, are only intelligible as based upon the expectation of the resurrection. And this, again, as based on references of Jesus to the resurrection. And so that fits in with Schweitzer's larger project of seeing Jesus as an apocalyptic prophet and as preaching the imminent inbreaking of the kingdom of God, the disciples expecting the kingdom of God to break in immediately, and the kingdom of God involving, among other things, the resurrection of the dead. And so their interpretation, which Schweitzer would see the resurrection experiences as being visionary in character, and so his argument is that they interpreted those subjective visionary experiences in terms of resurrection because they were expecting the resurrection. And so I just wanted to put that out there and then hear what your guys' thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I can go first if then you want to go next. I have several concerns about it. So, I mean, for one, I would I don't want to go into the whole debate about it, did they expect the imminent return or not? So let's just table that for now. My first thought would be if they thought that was definitely going to happen within their lifetime, I think they would have placed the resurrection of Jesus along with that experience itself. I don't think they would have been placing it like in terms of their visionary experiences. Again, there's that gap that we were talking about yesterday where I can fully accept that the disciples were like, yes, I can fully accept this idea that they had grief hallucinations, But that's going to be more. I think that if that's the case, they're going to interpret these Greek hallucinations with the presence of Jesus is still here, and we know the resurrection is around the corner now, and we're going to be raised with him. That's why we can still feel his presence. It's still here on this earth. That's why he's still here. That's why his spirit is with us. He's going to be doing that soon, and we're going to be doing that kind of thing. That seems to be more in line, I think, with what the expectations would be. Not that he actually did already resurrect. And then, of course, I'm going to have questions about some of the other data points that we'll cover, like why was Paul convinced? Why is James convinced? So with that, I feel like with the psychological research that Meter was bringing up yesterday, I don't think that that's going to get them to a physical person walking around. And I think the cultural expectations, which I can grant what Schweitzer's saying there, but I don't think that's going to get them to be like, yeah, Jesus has physically rose. He is here. I think they're going to say his presence is here and he will resurrect soon when this comes.
Okay, interesting. Because Allison argues this too, where he talks about, Paul's language in 1 Corinthians 15 in terms of the first fruits of the dead, or the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep, Jesus' resurrection being the first fruits of the general resurrection. And then in Romans saying the Son of God, who declared to be the Son of God by the resurrection of the dead, and in the Greek that being not Jesus's resurrection from the dead, but actually the resurrection of the dead, and so referring to Jesus's resurrection in the terms of the general resurrection. And then also Schweitzer and Allison both talk about Matthew 27 and the quote unquote zombie apocalypse passage, but that as reflecting, if nothing else, reflecting the expectation of the general resurrection, and so being a tradition that is talking about Jesus's resurrection as part of a larger resurrection, a larger eschatological event. And all of those data points kind of feeding into this larger point about Jesus's resurrection as being a confirmation, a down payment, a presaging, kind of proleptic anticipation of the general resurrection, first fruits of the rest of it as coming just around the corner. And so I know that you didn't want to talk about or get into all of the debate over Jesus as an apocalyptic prophet, but
I mean, we can. I thought you wanted to focus on the resurrection things. I was just trying to focus on that. But I'm fine.
I mean, I think it is that they're related, obviously, but if at least we can talk about the disciples as what is it, Luke 17 or Luke 19? Luke 17:11, I think. No, 19:11. The passage where it says they were expecting the kingdom of God to come immediately. And then obviously in Luke 24 with the disciples saying, oh, we hoped that he would be the one to deliver Israel. That seems to reflect, and then and Acts 1 as well, when is all this going to take place? The disciples, whatever we say about Jesus and his expectation, the Gospels do seem fairly unanimous in painting the disciples as having an expectation for the kingdom of God to come pretty quickly. And, that seems to involve restoration of creation, restoration of Israel, general resurrection. And so given that being the case, isn't there then precedent, speaking in terms of their prior expectation, their cultural, situation, as that they would have reason to interpret visionary experiences or hallucinatory, quote unquote, experiences in terms of confirmation bias to speak to and confirm their prior expectation for the kingdom of God, which included physical resurrection of the dead?
So I have two things that I want to, and I'm going to try to condense everything just because I know you said you have limited time. part of this is going to depend on how we're modeling the Gospels, because that's going to be really important, because that's going to answer the question, like, what is the data we actually need to explain, right? Because there's going to be a disconnect between us and you, because we think the Gospels are reliable, and I'm assuming you take some sort of a legendary development theory or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say the Gospels are reliable in some places, less reliable in others, but as it gets to the resurrection narratives, less reliable.
Yeah, so if you're willing to conditionalize and kind of give answers depending on like this model and this model, maybe that'd be helpful there. And then the second question I was going to have is more of a clarifying question, because then how would this fit with your cognitive dissonance theory? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but with the cognitive dissonance theory and for explaining things, this is a necessary part of this is going to be like reinterpretation of things that have actually happened, right? And so if there's actually a prior precedent for belief in the resurrection, that means that cognitive dissonance isn't actually going to explain belief in the resurrection, right? Because why would there would be no need to reinterpret whatever they experienced. The cognitive dissonance, the scope of that.
Interpreting what they experienced in terms of resurrection is a way that is what enables them to double down on that prior expectation. And in spite of the ambiguities of their experience and the fact that the kingdom of God, as they previously expected it, has not broken in, the restoration of creation is not happening, the restoration of Israel, et cetera, is not happening. And the death of Jesus, I think, being something that they did not expect, belief in resurrection, in the resurrection of Jesus as the first fruits of the general resurrection, enables them to hold on to that prior expectation and say that it's not that it is not fulfilled, it's that it is partially fulfilled, awaiting full fulfillment in the future. So they didn't expect the resurrection of one person of the Messiah prior to the general resurrection, but they then developed this new belief in the resurrection of the Messiah prior to the general resurrection as a way of reducing dissonance.
So
if that makes sense.
So I totally get where you're coming from. I think it's not the type that we would expect to see, going back to my other theory, which is that we would expect them to be like, yes, he was defeated, but this is part of God's plan, and that general resurrection is coming soon, and he's going to raise up. And we know this is going to be the case because we can still feel his presence here on earth. It's any day now. The trumpets will sound, he will rise first, and we will rise with him. Because as you just acknowledged, they didn't have this idea that there was going to be this other resurrection prior. I feel like they would interpret that in the way that we're having as we see, like the way the hallucinations tend to be interpreted when people think they're real. It's that I can feel the spirit here with us. Like going on to one of the points I brought up yesterday, when we bring up Herod Antipas thinking that John the Baptist rose from the dead, it's because there was a real person walking around. Unless there was a real person walking around, I don't think they're going to go, yes, resurrection has happened. We're totally shocked by this. And then, of course, we then have to add on top of that an explanation for the James and the Paul conversion aspect. But just sticking with the disciples for now, I think that's a simpler thing we should have expected based on that, not this resurrection idea.
Okay. I do have to get going, but this would be a really great conversation to follow up on. If you guys ever want to have like a longer conversation, I would love to do that. But if you ever have a chance, this would be a really great book for you to interact with. It's by Yoram Biliu, and the title is With Us More Than Ever: Making the Absent Rebbe Present in Messianic Chabad. Can you
put it on? Made you full screen. Can you put it on there so I can just see it there?
Cool.
So it's about the Lubavitcher movement, and specifically the Messianic wing of the Lubavitcher movement, who followed Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, who, there was a lot of, probably the largest Messianic movement since Sabbatai Zevi in the 17th century. and probably one of the three largest messianic movements. If you put Jesus, then Sabbatai Zevi, and then Menachem Schneerson, those are probably the three biggest Jewish messianic movements. But this book is ethnographic data following this group of people, and after the death of the Rebbe, and it just chronicles a lot of visionary experiences. He's cautious about using the word hallucination, but he does engage with some of the psychological literature on that.
No, I will definitely check that out, because it can.
Yeah.
There is part of the series I want to do on the resurrection is,
and it is it's a messianic movement. It's an eschatological movement, and some of the Lubavitchers did interpret his occlusion or his departure, his being absent from them, in eschatological terms as only an apparent absence. Some of them use the language of resurrection, and then there has been a lot of apparitions of him, many apparitions. That is one of the prime. There's a whole chapter on it in this book. And so really interesting stuff in terms of cognitive dissonance theory.
No, we'll definitely check that out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
I texted you. We can.
Oh,
if
sweet.
If you're down, if you're down, let's just.
Yeah. No, I'd love to. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah. I really wanted to. If he had more time, I'd want to really press him on. Okay, how does this explain the empty tomb? How does this explain James and Paul? How does this explain them immediately proclaiming it in Jerusalem? How does this explain them willing to, like all the other facts surrounding the resurrection? And again, I don't think it fits with the messianic expectations, because I think if they were so bent on Jesus still being the Messiah, which again wasn't necessary, I think they would have just said, well, his spirit is still here and the resurrection is going to happen any day now. I think that's a much easier way to explain that than saying, no, there really was a physical resurrection. But didn't have much time. Maybe at some point you and him, or you and I, can have a conversation directly.
Excuse me. Yeah. We'll probably just have a private chat next week.
Cool. Where was I on these super chats? I get what he's trying to say, but the way he's putting it through our cultural views we have of women. Most of our documents hint that women being undervalued in aspects compared to modern day. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Got to look at the women in that cultural lens. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Much appreciated. People need to read more N.T. Wright, Resurrection of the Son of God, and Surprised by Hope. Yep. I've been a while since I've read those books for sure. But they're both pretty good books. IP, your session at the Blessed God Summit was amazing. Hopefully you have another session next year, because we plan to make it in person. We couldn't go this year because we adopted our 2 foster children that weekend. Well, that is definitely a worthy reason to not go. I forgive you for that, but you better come next year with the children. Okay. Otherwise I won't forgive you. Okay. But that's awesome to be that you're doing that. I wish I could adopt as well. So yeah, good to see that's happening for sure. And yeah, the session was definitely amazing. Than missed it because he's a loser.
Why would I want to come listen to you talk?
That's a good point. I wouldn't either.
I hear you talk every week.
It's hard on you, yeah. Let's bring up Scott here. Scott, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. What's going on?
Okay,
you got a good radio voice, my man.
Cool, man. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good to hear it. Look, I'm just calling to maybe you guys can put me through a little stress test on my on one of my views. Like I'm not a theist. I don't really believe in a personal God, so therefore I'm not a Christian. But I am a non-dualist idealist. Not sure if you're familiar with any of that, but basically I kind of
do you know who I am, sir?
A little bit. Seen you around the block.
Well, by non-dualism, it's hopefully this isn't a derogatory term to you, Scott. It's like the new age stuff. So like making non-evaluative judgments about the world and stuff like that.
Yeah. Scott, you should you're saying you're an idealist?
Correct.
Yeah, you should check out my channel. I've got a ton of videos arguing idealism is true.
Oh, cool. So we
Like
got
all of these on the
already.
Yeah, all these on the screen are some of my videos on idealism.
Oh, perfect. I will definitely check that out. I did subscribe to your channel. I just haven't had a chance to look into it. I used to be a Christian.
Okay.
And I'm interested in apologetics and epistemology and philosophy and all that good stuff. But I'm not going to try to hold you for any kind of argument or, anything like that. But basically just to kind of get your view, because, as I'm kind of persuaded that reality is fundamentally mental or experiential.
Yep, it is.
So maybe the difference here is that I don't think we need to really posit a fully meta-conscious personal God at the ground level. I'm more persuaded by a non-reflective field of subjectivity, if you will. That basically an argument from sufficiency, something more parsimonious. I kind of appeal to Occam's razor. So I don't want to really.
What's at the fundamental base level? What is subjective down there then?
Yeah. So that's the thing that I understand would need explaining, like the existence of experience.
Right. Something's got to be experiencing. If it experiences the base
of something. Right. Exactly. Christian, I guess Christian idealism is what you'd maybe identify with. So basically, you're saying that there's a metaconscious personal God that would have like beliefs, knowledge, intentions, all that good stuff.
Yep. I think that's the most rational thing. This is what boggles my mind when I read like Bernardo Kastrup. I'm like, if we're arguing that idealism is true, I don't see how you. Here's a good way to explain this. When I was getting my master's degree, I took a philosophy of mind course. We had to give a presentation, and so on anything we discussed on the course, anything we were interested in related to philosophy of mind. This was the seminar that I was taking, and I met with my professor, great guy, great professor, super intelligent, and I was like, I want to make a case for idealism. And so he's like, okay, yeah, explain to me your view. And so I started going, and he's like, wait a minute. I was just explaining basic idealism. And he's like, wait a minute. This is just traditional religiosity. Are you okay with that? I'm like, yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Right. It's like, if you're going to argue for idealism, I don't see how you get away from a theistic worldview, because it seems like just flow there.
Yeah. I get it. I do understand where you're coming from. It's just, I guess, what I'm trying to avoid is explaining why God has the specific, mental structures that he would have, like explaining why is God personal rather than impersonal. The problem of intention, psychology, divine hiddenness, problem of evil is really big here. It just seems easier to argue for an idealism that kind of avoids all of that stuff. So for me, I guess a non-reflective field explains consciousness without needing to explaining any sort of psychology of that field or intentionality.
Well, I think that what you kind of brought up are just other issues. Like it's like, for example, if I were to say, like, if I was arguing with someone, like a young Earth creationist, and I say, look, we have a ton of evidence for evolution. And he goes, yeah, but what about, this aspect? Like, how do you explain how whales evolved? I'm like, well, hold on. That's another issue. That doesn't mean the evidence we don't have for evolution is wrong. It just means we haven't accounted for everything yet. And if we have an idealist reality that seems to be pointing to theism, we go, okay, we've got a great working theory, theistic idealism. Maybe we've not worked all the kinks out. I'm fine saying that. But, that doesn't mean the evidence we have that leads us to there is wrong. So like you bring up things like problem of evil, divine hiddenness. I'll refer you to the channel where we've got videos on the problem of evil, videos on divine hiddenness as well.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely take a look at it. And I guess let me ask you, like, because you had mentioned that, you have to have something to be conscious of to have some sort of awareness. Like, what are you aware of? I guess my issue there is that there's a hidden assumption that maybe consciousness requires reflection, but, reflection is something consciousness does, not necessarily what it is. Like, say like animals and infants, for example, like they can experience without thinking about their experience, for example, right? Does that work, or how does that not work?
So for animals specifically, is that what we're going to focus on?
Yeah, yeah, because if you think about it, I'm kind of bottoming out to like the most simplest form of some kind of condition for any kind of experience to, or self-reflection to arise out of, right? And so maybe looking at something simpler than metaconscious humans, kind of like a puppy dog or a bat, like, you know, something that we don't really assume has that sort of self-consciousness. Well, we know those things exist.
I mean, in one way, Christianity kind of resolves this. God is triune. The Father's aware of the Son is aware of the Father, they're aware of the Holy Spirit eternally. So you have that awareness there, and you have three conscious persons of one God. So, I mean, if that's an issue, boom, the Bible's right there.
So do you have a video that kind of outlines how that actually solves that issue, or maybe possibly?
No, I don't know. Not on that specifically, because it's not really something I've focused a lot on. What I focus mostly on when it comes to idealism is just arguing idealism is true. Because most of the people that I deal with are going to be like losers like Stan over here, who's a substance dualist, and just trying to convince him that
I just defend idealism and dualism.
See, I told you he's a loser. Like, he's defending substance dualism. It's weird. So,
well, in a way, I kind of understand, because I feel like dualism is where you're going to derive all meaning and purpose and stuff like that. I mean, it is part of our experience.
Well, that's why I'm a
specifically. Hold on. There's a disconnect right there. But by dualism, I'm talking about philosophy of mind, not dualism in terms of like what you're thinking about. Dualism is just making a distinction between the material world and the mental world.
And I follow the philosopher Keith Ward, who's an idealist. He coined the term dual aspect idealist. So in dual aspect idealism, you have consciousness and you would have information. So that solves that issue as well. You're a conscious agent who is aware of various forms of information, whether they're your thoughts, your experiences, your memories. So you have the dual aspect is there. It's just not substance dualism.
Gotcha. So like, say in the Bible, I guess in Ecclesiastes, it talks about how, you know, body returns to dust, spirit returns to God. You know, how does that turn out to be non-dualistic?
Well, I wouldn't say it necessarily is non-dualistic, because you still have the information that makes up your physical body and the conscious agent. There's just a split from that information with the conscious agent.
I see. Is that like a split at the relativistic level, or do you like, I guess what I'm getting at, you know, how a lot of folks talk about, you know, well, you know, at the quantum level, you've got, you don't have causation as such. You don't have time as such. You don't have, you know, there's no distinctions as such. But then at the relativistic level, you know, we have time, we have causation, we can talk about. Is that kind of what the scripture is pointing to? Is that the relativistic level, right? Or is that how you see it? Maybe.
I mean, I would.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say because we're not conscious agents at the quantum level in that sense either. We are classical, and we are experiencing a classical world. So when we die, the conscious agent splits from the body in the sense that the information that we were experiencing, we are cut off from. And that's what happens. But I wouldn't say that conscious agent goes away. I would say they continue with their memories, thoughts, personality, that kind of stuff. But they get cut off from the experience and the information of the body.
Gotcha. And I agree. There's definitely a disassociation. Like, I'm disassociated from what I was doing last Tuesday at 2:00. I can't remember that crap. so I believe in that kind of disassociation. But I guess, wow, I've got so many questions. I don't want to take up too much time.
Well, does this have anything to do with the resurrection, which is the kind of the topic?
Yeah, well, it's sort of attacking the fundamental to the resurrection. I mean, for one thing, in my own personal experience, and I guess it's called a miracle for a reason, It's not a norm. It's an extraordinary event by definition. It's not something that we would expect to see every day, a person rising from the dead after 3 days. And so for me to believe something like that, it seems like I would have to have some sort of maybe convincing argument for it. Like, you know, obviously we can't get in the time machine and go back and check it out, but I've heard, you know, so many arguments over the years, and I'm sure you guys have heard them all too, based on what I've heard your conversation so far. You know, and we can talk about priors and the Bayesian inferences and all of this kind of stuff, all the prior stuff that goes into it. And I'm trying to really stay away from that because I don't really put a whole lot of stock into my own rationality when it comes to big questions like that, because who says that humans necessarily understand how reality really works at that level? So I'm not going to really sit there and say, hey, I'm smarter than that. You know, I understand that, you know, but it seems like there should be some sort of convincing, I don't know, for me personally, to really wrap my head around that.
I don't know how you're going to have this conversation without talking about the prior probability.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just not going to, you're not going to become convinced if there is no prior probability. It's not like, I'm assuming you, since you brought up Bayesianism, you know some of the language I'm using here now, right? But how are you going to get a posterior probability without a prior probability?
Yeah. And I guess if I'm honest, I'll just say that it's not part of my experience. And I don't really have a motivation to believe in it anymore like I used to as a child. And, well, you know, I know that's not a very rational maybe approach, or, you know, just because we don't see that
honest
motivation.
Yeah,
you know?
right, bro. Look, this is one of the reasons I actually really love Bayesianism, is because you get to bring your background knowledge to the table. I get to bring my background knowledge to the table. We work together to have an upper and lower bound on the prior probability. And then we can go, great, given that, what does the data do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a you versus it's not a my prior versus your prior thing. It's when done correctly, I think it can be really collaborative. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I'm with you. Yeah, it's not with it's not in my normal experience that people raise from the dead, right? But there's going to be other things that affect the prior probability still, right? Because if just saying something as simple as it doesn't happen frequently, I've never experienced it, stuff like that, right? Well, I'm sure you can think of tons of counterexamples to that line of reasoning. Right, like at that point, the first time events for anything could never be justified. Like,
yeah, and usually,
like imagine I just invented the spring, Scott, and a spring has never been sprung before, and I go up to you, Scott, and I go, okay, look, you know about the way the world works, all this other stuff, and I'm compressing this. You can see the tension building, and I go, what do you think the prior probability is that when I let go, it's going to do like spring stuff? Right, even though this has never happened before. Right, you're going to be like, yeah, that's really high.
Right.
So there's going to be other things that affect how we might assess the prior probability of the resurrection. Part of that is just going to be how we model out what we think reality is like, and if there's a God or not, and what things are good or bad and stuff like that. So, for instance, like, if in my background knowledge, I have this idea that a God exists, and I also think that this idea of like joining in with your, I'll say subordinates, for lack of a better term right now, right? Joining in with their experience is a good thing, worthwhile thing, much like a lieutenant joining in with his crew in a house fire, if in the fire department or something like that, right? I might predict that given theism and this one little truth came about like what's good and bad, that God would become incarnate, right? And that's going to raise like probability of God becoming incarnate then, and I would argue something like a resurrection happening. And there's more things that we can kind of build upon this, but all I'm trying to do right now is just kind of show like there's a structure of reasoning you can employ that I think shows that the prior is not going to be that low. And I think you can also point to like modern day miracle accounts that I think are pretty strong to show that the prior probability for like miracles in general is not going to be too low.
Modern day miracles? What are you referring to?
So for instance, like Barbara Snyder, if you've ever heard of her, she, I think in the 1970s, she was diagnosed with MS. It got progressively worse. By the time 1981 comes around, she was as close as you can get to like the end of the disability scale. She's a paraplegic. She has 2 paralyzed organs. She's wheelchair bound. She's blind. All this stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 16 years later. Eventually, as a last ditch effort, and she's in hospice, mind you.
I got a better idea. Why don't we do? You just want to play your video?
It's not out yet.
Yeah. Just play it now.
And was she a Christian? Was she a Christian believer?
Yeah, she was a Christian. But Mike's going to play a video that's not out yet. So
okay.
If prayer does nothing, what do you do with cases like this? Meet Barbara Snyder. She had progressive MS for 16 years. Her symptoms started in the 1960s, and by the time the 1970s came around, her respiratory system began to deteriorate, and she was constantly hospitalized due to asthma. By 1981, she was completely bedbound. Her diaphragm's paralyzed. She was on a breathing tube, nearly blind, unable to swallow, and her body was severely deformed. Doctors rated her condition near the maximum disability level and placed her on hospice care. Then on June 7th, 1981, her family gathered to pray. While lying in bed, she hears a voice, "Get up and walk." In a literal leap of faith, she stands up, pulls out her breathing tube, and within minutes, her sight returns, her breathing normalizes, and she's walking. Within the same day, we have many people witnessing and testifying to seeing the former paraplegic now walking. This includes her walking up to her doctor, and he stops all treatment, says he's never seen anything like it. Follow-up reports confirm this. No signs of MS, no neurological deficits, nothing. If you want to say this wasn't a miracle, then you have a problem. MS does not suddenly reverse. Multiple biological systems don't all at once spontaneously heal. She had neurological issues, respiratory issues, muscular issues, optical issues, you name it, all within the context of prayer going away. And she lived another 40 years with no relapses in her MS. So if you're skeptical of prayer and you're skeptical of miracles, here's my question to you. If miracles don't happen, if prayer does not work, what happened here?
So that video is going to come out soon. I just figured let's play it now for people watching.
Yeah.
Why not?
And so you saw quotes from medical reports in there. There's medical reports that there's a picture of. We have, I have other reports too that I can pull up if you want to. But basically, like we have the medical reports of her having MS and her visits with the Mayo Clinic and other stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she was prayed for, and within moments, she's getting up and walking. She's dancing for the first time in 16 years with her father. You get the point. Mm-hmm. And there's other cases that I can point to that I think are really strong. But I think miracles do happen. And so something like, if you're convinced that something like this, I think that's going to be really strong reasons for thinking that the prior probability of the resurrection is not going to be that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. And, you know, I sort of generally I try to be in a healthy way, to be a skeptic, not hyper skeptic, but to be a healthy skeptic, and even be skeptical about my own skepticism, so forth and so on. You know, and I try to apply Humean skepticism, you know, that we have regularities and patterns in nature. We also have liars. We also have exaggerators. We also have, but then there's also stories of, you know, Christian miracles. There's Hindu miracles. There's those in Islam that testify to such miracles. And then there's also explanations like, I don't know if you're familiar with perennialist philosophy. They would say that a lot of mystical experiences, healings, NDEs, things of that nature, these sort of extraordinary experiences exist within all different religions. And then there's these commonalities among them all. You know, I haven't looked at every one of them, but say, let's just pretend, I don't know if this is true, but say if there was something similar to the example you just showed in the video for a Muslim or a Hindu that was just as comparable, how would you explain that? Would you say like, well, Satan, you know, came as an angel?
The first thing I would say is that, okay, well, at this point, atheism is toast. There's definitely a God. The question is now what do we do with all this data? There could be that case as well. The thing is, though, in reality, I'm not aware of cases like that.
So Scott, to answer your question, because I have searched for like miracles is one of the things that I'm actually like really interested in. It's one of those topics where like in the academic world, philosophers love me, but at the same time they get really annoyed with me sometimes because I talk about miracles, because it's like one of those, you know how academics are sometimes. It's like you have those disciplines where it's like, okay, but we don't talk about that, right? And miracles is one of those things, because at the end, like I had, and I'm not going to name names here, I had an agnostic philosopher who's very well respected, and I gave him a case recently, and he literally goes, look, my explanation is going to be really strained here, and I don't know, I don't know what else to do here. And I gave him, we were talking about the miracle of Fatima, and he's like, I know this like doesn't work with the mathematics, and I know this doesn't work with this stuff, and blah 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 blah, but like God doesn't exist, so this couldn't have been a miracle. And the whole entire point I'm trying to make is this is a field that I'm very interested in. I've done a lot of work here, and one of my friends, Caleb Jackson, has done even more work on this topic than I have. I'd highly recommend checking him out. But in all of my work, I've never come across a non-Christian case where the force of the evidence matches what we find in some of these Christian cases. If that makes sense. If such a case did come about, I'm gonna have to look at it first of all and ascertain everything. So let's just grant like something actually did come up. I think Christianity has the explanatory flexibility to deal with it, because Christianity teaches, I think the Bible teaches, that there are false gods out there. There are rebelling little g gods that can do these types of things. I mean, look at Moses when he's confronting the Egyptians. They make snakes out of their staffs and all this other stuff. And so, I think that's going to be like that's like a two-layered response there, right? It's like, one, I haven't seen any cases, and two, I think it fits within the Christian worldview.
Gotcha. And I suppose uncertainty is something that affects us all. I mean, we could all just be in the matrix and somebody's back. Some little kids playing tricks on everybody. There's always that possibility. But we try to infer to the best explanation, I suppose. Yeah. And I guess you're giving me a lot to think about. I'll check it all out, and I'll look at your videos and go through them. I haven't had a chance. I'm kind of busy, but yeah, I'll check it all out, man. I appreciate you stress testing me there and helping me.
Yeah, happy to do it, man.
I want to believe in God. I want to so bad.
You do. Scott, you're an idealist,
man. I would. Of course, well, he's a non-dualist idealist. Scott, I wish we had more time, man. Because if we did, I think you and I could have a really fun discussion on which model of reality would be better, like the theistic. We could even just do like an idealism theistic framework versus the idealistic non-dualistic framework. And I think we would have a really fun discussion there. So
I do a YouTube show. I have a YouTube channel, and I do shows every Saturday and Sunday. In fact, one of the guys that comes on and hosts, he's a Christian idealist as well. So I'm open to it, and we have these kind of talks. So yeah, either way, anytime you want to link up one way or the other on your channel, it doesn't matter. I'm open to learn.
Yeah, bro. Shoot me an email if you ever want to talk. Than@inspiringphilosophy.com.
Okay, we'll do it, sir.
All right,
Cool.
catch you later.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you, guys.
Cool. Awesome. Let's do these quick super chats and we'll bring in our next guest. You know what's a miracle with extraordinary evidence? The fact that we're talking about something 12 people believed in, debating about it 2,000 years later. Yeah. Changed the freaking world for the better. That's another argument I want to try to develop, is an argument for Christianity. I don't want it to be like, I'm just trying to figure out.
I already used that to increase the prior probability of the resurrection, Mike.
That Christianity has helped drastically change the world.
So basically, here's the argument. Suppose that there's a God that exists, right? Or if you want to grant it, then you can ask the question like, okay, so we have this observation that Christianity has caused much good in the world, right? Now you can ask the question, okay, so if God is going to endorse some sort of a religious system, and he has foreknowledge of what sort of religious system would cause so much good for the world, it seems like Christianity would be a contender for endorsement, right? For like the type of revelation God would want to bring about. He knows that Jesus' resurrection would accomplish that. So you can make the strings of inferences there to say that like God, the prior probability of God wanting to endorse Christianity by the resurrection of Jesus, you get the point, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You get the inference.
And if you don't believe us, watch this playlist we have on the channel. Christianity changed the world in so many ways. It ended slavery, gave value to children, unlike before. It created human rights. It educated the world, created science, ended pederasty around the world. That's what this video is about. Just a lot of really good that came out of Christianity. It's hard to really just cover it all. But yeah, I check that out if you're interested. We got a lot of stuff on there. Realize that people don't tend to engage with arguments, i.e. problem of evil, pointing towards God's existing simply because it seems to be something they can use against religious people, not God. Yeah, I see your point there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they don't tend to use that.
Person.
They can. Yeah. Does the Bible teach some people will be richer in heaven than others? No, I don't think riches are going to be there, man.
I don't know about you, but God told me I'm so special that I'm going to be super wealthy and I'll be able to go Super Saiyan.
Listen, if you want to have immense wealth in heaven, brothers and sisters, I have a message for you. You need to donate a seed into this ministry here, a seed of $1,000, my fellow brothers and sisters, into this ministry, and you will have immense riches in heaven. I mean, immense riches in heaven, sir. So donate your seed into this ministry today, and you will see overflowing riches